Welcome back to season 31 of 7-Eleven Junior Hockey Magazine. I'm your host, Gino Reda. Time now for the CJHL Report. The Canadian Junior Hockey League brings together 115 teams in the 9 Junior A leagues involving over 2,500 players from right across the country. Joining us now is a longtime Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League scorekeeper, Randy Pascal, who's also just working at the Olympics in Beijing. Randy, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Gino. Pleasure to be here.
So when I say that, people go, really? He was working the Olympics? What was that experience like, and how did it come to be?
Well, it's actually my third set of Olympics. So really have been very fortunate with that. Started with Vancouver in 2010.
Don't just mic drop that. Vancouver 2010 is one of the great all-time Canadian Olympic Games ever.
Well, you know, to work that, actually, it's funny you say that. The highlight for me, because there were a group of 6 of us that were scorekeepers, the highlight was being named to work the gold medal game. So wow. Being at center ice when Crosby scored the goal is, you know, it still gives me shivers to this day. Actually, initially the door opened through a contact from Northern Ontario, a fellow by the name of Dan McCord, former NHL linesman, who happened to run into somebody in Vancouver and got talking about the need for off-ice officials who were volunteering. The next thing you know, we're applying, managed to get selected, and fortunate enough to get some pretty high-level games there. Fast forward 8 years from then, and made some contacts in Vancouver with the International Ice Hockey Federation. 8 years from then, get a phone call from a friend with the IHF, who now was working full time with them and wanting to know, would I be interested in heading over to Korea? They needed a little bit of help with the Korean volunteers in terms of just stabilizing the areas of both, whether in my area it was particularly at the penalty box, scorekeeper's bench, but also they brought over a few people to help out with the stats bench, right? Because the Koreans did very good volunteers, very bright young kids, but really didn't have a ton of exposure to hockey. So that's basically what we were brought in for. We finished the Korea games. It was an unbelievable experience. Going as a guest of the IHF is an incredible experience into itself. And did not really think that anything would happen as far as China, largely because China has a pretty robust hockey infrastructure. Right. So thought, okay, well, they've got people that are doing KHL games there. They've got people that have done the Women's Pro League that played out of there. They have a lot more rinks than Korea does. And so was very, very pleasantly surprised to get the call back in September asking, would I be willing to go as one of 5 Canadians, heading over to help out with the event in February. So yeah, just got back a couple of weeks ago.
That's crazy. So I don't like, how does one train to become an Olympic scorekeeper? That's the question I have. I mean, how do you go from working a minor hockey game of a bunch of, under 12-year-olds or under 15-year-olds to one day be essentially an Olympian of scorekeeping proportions? How does that transition happen?
Well, it's a great question, Gino. I would say I'll suggest there's kind of 2 answers to it. One was very early on, I kind of separated myself just by being really almost obsessed with the idea that you strive for perfection. And again, this is no different whether you're talking about a sports broadcaster or an official on the ice or a player. It really is that same fundamental. So you want to, as a scorekeeper, you want to know every single rule that pertains to what do you do in complicated situations when you've got lots of guys in the penalty box, who gets out. You want to know that portion of the rule book at least as well as the on-ice officials, because you're only responsible for a very small segment of the rule book, right? We don't have to worry about all the other things that they have on their mind. So, and same thing with my score sheets. If you talk to the people around the OHL, they will acknowledge that if I'm not the neatest score sheets in the league, certainly have been always considered in the top couple. So again, there's a lot of people with good penmanship, but it's a sign of that wanting perfection, right? You want to make sure that everything appears the way it should appear. So that was kind of at the base of everything else. And then the second thing is, I was really fortunate that when the OHL brought in the official scorers role, so the person who actually gives the assist off the ice, right? When they took it away from the officials and said, this is too important. We don't want players screaming from the bench saying, 7 and 10 on the assist, right? To decide a scoring race, that will actually dedicate somebody to sit upstairs and watch for the assist. Well, I happened to do that when I lived in Kingston for a while. And so when I went back to scorekeeping down in the penalty box, I had developed this way of watching a game that innately had me, looking for assist anyways, and kind of watching. Awesome. So if you talk to the officials in the north here and in Sudbury's particular, they'll say, yeah, we love doing games with Randy because when we come after the penalty box after goal, he already has goal and assist down. It may or may not always be perfect, but at least it's a helping hand for them. And to be honest, when I got the call in for Korea, that was the very first question my friend asked. He said, do you still pick up goals and assists from the penalty box? And I said, yeah, I've been doing it for years. I said, why? He said, well, because the Koreans don't have that background in hockey, that skill set would be invaluable to us in order to have accurate information as quickly as possible, largely for the Olympic broadcasters. They're the ones who, when they're doing the replay, they want to see that that's Reda from Pascal and Gretzky or something, right? And
that's great.
Yeah. So
in conversation with longtime Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League scorekeeper Randy Pascal, has worked 3 different Olympic games. Okay, so we all have our memory of the golden moment. I remember exactly where I was. I was in the building and I was watching that goal unfold. Give us your memory of Crosby, Iginla to Crosby for the golden goal in 2010, because you were right there.
Yeah. So and you kind of segue right from what I was just talking about. So at the because that arena, you would remember if you were there how loud the arena was.
Very
right?
loud.
As we got into the playoffs, now when a goal is scored in the scorekeeper's bench, I'm yelling immediately. I've got a headset on with the referee who's giving me the goal score, and I'm yelling, okay, 87 from 12, right? Is in that particular case. The problem was once we got to the playoff games, because the arena was so loud, nobody could hear you if they were sitting 2 seats away from you. So we went to a whiteboard format. So as soon as a goal was scored or a penalty situation occurred, we were writing, or I was writing on this whiteboard. So when the goal occurred, as much people said, you must have cheered. You're Canadian. You must have, was there a little fist pump or something? And I said, honestly, you're so caught up in the job you have to do, which is we just wanted a clean goal. And and we had if you remember, we had the perfect vantage point because we were kitty corner from where Iginla's pass comes out. So we actually probably saw the puck go in the net from our vantage point earlier than Crosby did, because he's kind of circling around right before he realizes it's made.
Right. He didn't even initially realize it was in the net.
Exactly. And then by the time he's circling behind the net, and then the iconic moment of his jump in the corner and things like that. So I would say that was the thrill of that. The second thing was after the game is done, much like in minor hockey, you have to get the score sheet signed, which normally involved, we go upstairs, get a printout of the sheet, wander over to the referee's room, get it signed, and that's fine. In the gold medal game, what happened was I went to the referee's room and we got to know the security guys, and they said, Randy, the referees aren't here. I said, what do you mean they're not here? I said, I think they're staying on the ice for the medal presentation. So I moved back to the penalty box, and in the penalty box, I'm talking to my crew chief and said, okay, I guess I'll just wait for these guys. He said, no, go. They're just right over here off the mat watching the medal press. Why don't you go and get it signed right there? And that way we get it out of the way. So when the picture of the Canadian team is taken with all the guys on the ice, I am probably standing about 15 feet away getting a score sheet signed by the referees. And again, wow. Your reaction kind of, it's one of those moments that, emblazoned in my mind for the rest of my life.
And rightfully so, because it's now become one of the most iconic moments in Canadian hockey history. Randy, you're a great storyteller, and you've been some great experiences, which helps you with those stories. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. It's been a lot of fun, my friend. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anytime at all.
That was longtime Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League scorekeeper Randy Pascal, who had some incredible moments already in his career. And that wraps up this week's CJHL Report, the Canadian Junior Hockey League. Your future is here. Still inside 7-Eleven Junior Hockey Magazine, he helped our nation win gold back at the 2008 World Junior Championship. And now he's patrolling the blue line for the Vancouver Canucks. We'll check in with Luke Shen in this week's edition of Where Are They Now? You're listening to Canada's only nationally syndicated junior hockey radio show, season 31 of 7-Eleven Junior Hockey Magazine. And don't forget, you can listen and subscribe to the complete podcast by checking out any of your favorite podcast platforms.